Good evening, all. I think we finally got things squared away. Maybe. Come on, mouse. Somehow or another, I messed that up too. Okay. Okay. We got us another natural edge bowl. Close that curtain. This one is cherry. Pennsylvania cherry, of course. So we're going to line up our high points. Actually pretty close. Always make sure we give things a spin. Make sure that nothing's going to hit. Don't need any excitement like that. Or broken things. Put handles on the bigger bowl gouges. Question is, where's the other handle? I have two handles. It's over here. Hi, how are you? Visalia. Wow. What part of California would that be? Not really. I'm on the opposite end of the world from you, but I can't say that I've ever heard of that one. Well, at least it didn't drop on the cutting part. I'll start out with the 5/8 gouges on this. It'll make it a little quicker, a little easier, maybe. This thing has some cracks down the edge, so might end up being a tad bit smaller than what I originally had intended, but we'll deal with it. So we're off to the side. We're going to bring up our speed somewhat, get a vibration out of it. It's not balanced, it's not round, so you just have to make a cut or two in here and get things lined up. Okay. Oh. I think that was the park that we were in many years ago out there. That's some wild trees there. And this piece of cherry is actually fairly dry. Cracks don't. So maybe they wouldn't go very deep. We're not quite round yet. We're going to take some off the bottom because there's like a wind shake type crack that comes up in Yeah, you can see the dark line. It comes up around there and down into there, so that definitely will need to be removed. Totally removed. I didn't make it far enough that it cut a little bit up in there, so we can see where we're at on the low points. Not very close. So I'm going to move that because I like them to be balanced. I think they look better when they're balanced, and it makes it easier to turn them, I think, in my opinion. So make another cut or two here and see what we get. Yes, I got getting a little heavy. It lays on the high-speed pulley, so it doesn't like to be drugged down too much. And we'll make sure we get the holey off the end. Thing has a nice sap line to it. Trying to see if I can see how deep the cracks go. Looks like I go almost a ½ inch further in there. But we have no bark, so I'm not really necessarily concerned about keeping going at this point and keep taking down, because we can come in from the bottom side and just take enough off to get rid of all of them. At least that's the plan. The question will be, do we need the longer tool rest? Probably not. I don't think so. But we have enough room. Oh, barely. I'm going to back it up just a little bit. I don't like it to be where it's almost touching. That's a little concerning there. Get things flattened off and get this corner off and see where that piece is going to go. Because this crack comes over and goes down and actually is going almost right down the middle of the live center too. So that could create us a bit of an issue. But we'll see where we're at. And now we'll just get things cleared up. We know we got a big chunk out here. Like I say, the wood is pretty dry. It's not necessarily bone dry, but can't tell whether that crack actually comes out the other side. It definitely comes up in here. We're going to have to lose some material there, but at this point we can continue on keep getting some more weight off of this so that we can speed some things up a little bit, make things a little easier. Doesn't appear that it's loose. We'll find out, I'm sure. So theoretically, you should got that a little too tight, choking me. Still not going to get a whole lot of speed out of it at this point yet. I don't know. I would assume at home. If I know them, they're probably not out running around because of the weather. Let me look at something. I can tell you where he's at. He's probably watching because we're doing this both on YouTube and Twitch. No, he's not on Twitch either, so. I don't know. I didn't talk to him today. I talked to him yesterday. That storm that came through yesterday here, I don't know, around 6 o'clock-ish, something like that, knocked the power out. Knocked our power out. My wife called them to find out whether they had power. And they did, but we just kind of hung out with the neighbors, and they have a screened-in porch, so we kind of went over there and drank some beer and played some cards. And have the wear tag on it. No. He's a big boy. He can take care of himself. So we're starting to get balanced up anyhow. This is my way of doing it. I get rid of the corner right off the bat. I want this to be a total curve from the foot to the top. So if I don't get rid of the corner, this just makes it, to me, makes it easier. And we're not going to move the tool rest while it's running. I get in that very good habit because a lot of the things I do have corners on them and things that will bite you. Crack definitely goes, we're definitely going to have to lose material down into there. Because this is, I would probably, our forestry guy would probably tell me that's a wind shake crack. Because it would be close to the pith of the tree. It's going to sort of explore a little bit. Try and figure out where we need to go to. or get too carried away out here, because I know I'm going to have to release it and reset the live center at some point. Big one thing goes the whole way up into there. Yeah, just a tiny remnant of it right there left. So I might as well keep going in there and get rid of that and then reset the live center. This should be, of course, keyword should be driven in there hard enough that I should be able to actually release the live center. I think. I will probably put the, I'm sort of into the, like the little bead foot or the beaded foot on it. It's kind of what most of the stuff I've been doing lately has. So that's probably what this will be. Crack is still there a little bit. It's getting a little bit. But we got to get below that area that's cracking for sure. Still a tiny little remnant of it, but I think that should be even just a little bit more. You can get rid of the rest of it. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I was down here working on some real little stuff earlier, and I don't know, must not have had them quite tight enough because I got chips in my shoes, which I don't necessarily like. Yeah, see right there's the part that I was concerned about, because it's got a crack right in that. See if I can color it in a little bit. There's a crack running right up through here, which could be very disastrous. So we're just going to cut that off. See, is it going to let me? Yeah. A little bit of pressure on it and I should be able to cut this off relatively flush. And then just reset it. And then we should be good to go. Now we'll see how bad we knocked it out. Not too bad. Livable. That's why I really didn't want to take any more weight off or anything more off of it. So we got that squared away. So now it's going to be considerably shallower. That's okay. I'll pick up that little nub. I'll be stepping on it. Looks worse than what it is. Yeah, that'll work. I'm going to go a little bit bigger on the foot. We'll use I think I consider these a 3-inch jaws on the Vicmark chuck. I don't know if they necessarily measure true 3 inches, but I guess we could look at some other factors first. Remember where this started out? About 9 3/4, so a third of that would be about the 3-inch mark. And I know very good and well we're going to take more off the outside. And 3. Yeah, they call them 3, but actually is going to grip more like 2 3/4. Get open it up just a little bit more. This way I'll know where my foot's going to be. And then we can sort of go from there. If I can get the point to go where I want it to go and dig in. There we go. Slow down too much. Get the chuck off the lathe. One to rattle. I want this to be fairly good size, fairly deep. Not really worried about the gripping strength of it. I'm more interested in having enough to be able to put a little beaded foot down here when we get to that point. Now we know where the foot is, so I'll make and finish that up first. We have a parting tool that's ground at the angle, the dovetail angle for the Vicmark. All I got to do is go in straight, or at least parallel with this edge, and it's going to give me a pretty nice dovetail. Now we can do some shaping. That aggressive cut's not going to give you a clean cut, but it did what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to get rid of some material there for me. So it did its job. So now we can be more concerned about making cleaner cuts and get our shape where we want it. Because we still have cracks up there. So we're definitely going to be shrinking in size a bit. This is where it's one of them deals where you put up with a little bit of vibration and get the speed to make the cuts more efficient, or go really slow. This one may never actually get truly in balance because of the sapwood. Still not quite there. That definitely gave us a better overall cut. Cracks are shrinking a little bit, so that's a plus. And you can see the difference in the cut versus down in here's kind of a little ugly. Now we've cut the whole way around, so now we got to figure out just how deep those cracks go. Or do we really... Here's where the decision comes in, is to keep taking material off to get below the cracks, or just contend with filling them. We'll probably just go with the lesser of two evils, and we'll just take it and make it smaller. Probably going to have to shrink it down in size a little bit too. Would be my guess. I get tired of filling cracks. I mean, I certainly could keep them, but they're getting smaller each time, so I think till I take this line up, I think I'll be good. I could. That's really not a whole lot of an issue. I was filling some like 2 weeks ago. I'm filling them with super glue that was colored. I have like a copper colored mica powder, which actually really kind of looked really kind of nice. So little ones there. So now we're getting to the point where it's going to get too deep, at least for me. I don't like these to be more than, it's about 4.5, so we're under the 9, so we're theoretically about a half an inch. I don't remember who told me that one time, that when you get more than, if you take the diameter and split it in half, when you get more than that, it becomes very difficult to get a nice flowing shape out of it. So we're going to make a little bit, well, just a little bit more. Now those cracks are livable until I get everything else done to it. I think. Make that more flat. And we'll say that this is going to be the foot. This is going to be our tenon to grab it. I need to come back up here. I left a ridge up there. I'm getting getting around the reach part. It just isn't so good for the top. I want to go right off the edge. Can always get our trusty little glue stick out and see where we're at. Actually, we're not too bad. Stuff is dry. Dusty. A little bit of evidence of cracks left, but they're not dangerous kind of cracks there, so I think we're in good shape. Let's see whether this will like the scraper. Watching Richard Raffin way too much because he loves his scraper, and I've made one. This is a kind of like an Amazon special, but some of the woods for sure really like the scraper. You can see the shavings that come off, but cherry's one of them that will scrape nicely for the most part. So I know, trying to find it. Had some humps, little humps. The scraper is not straight. It has a curve to it. So it won't contact a huge area at one time. The only thing is, he has one that has a rounded edge on it. I don't. Maybe someday I'll get really energetic and sit there and grind this edge over round, but so I think that's good enough for the outside. Make sure my tenon is good. Make sure it's got a clean, crisp corner in there. Like I say, this will become a bead down here, which there's no point in doing the bead just yet. It looks like it could be a little thick, but we'll deal with that when we get to that point. Really need to wax the bed too. Starting to drag. You can see the points have driven in there quite nicely. It sits there all by itself without falling off, which is what I wanted it to do. I forgot to have my vacuum chuck adapter on here. A little hard to knock the drive center out with that there. So I'll make sure all our mating surfaces are clean. A nice little snap at the end. I'm going to put the wood so that the grain is running up and down parallel with the jaws. That was something one of them other professionals talked about once, and it is true. I mean, it's definitely something to try. It does make a difference. As you see, I wasn't cranking down on it, but it's tight. Very tight. So now we can clean the inside of it out. Did fuzz up the edge a little bit there, but that'll be okay. So we can switch over to, let's see, find the mouse. Where do we go there? Let's go there. Very dusty. I need to clean my face shield off so I can see what the heck I'm doing. So now we can clean out our inside. Here's where we'll go back. We'll go and use the 40-degree gouge for a fair amount of this. Here's my jaws. The grain is running up and down this way. So theoretically, this is pretty much centered, halfway centered in between there. So this is what happens is this is gripping the same type of material all the way around. Or if I spin it, we could get a lot more of the mixed grain, so to speak. It just, I trying to think who said about it. I want to say maybe it was Glenn Lucas that said about that. And I mean, this, like I say, this piece is dry, so it's really not going to make a whole lot of difference. But if it was something, if it was wet wood, it really seems to make a difference. This is my idea of drilling the depth hole, and it won't be the whole way down. You just don't get over on the other side like that. Trying to get the last little nub out down there. Just needs some room to move, room to work. So once I get out that, start to get out towards the edge, now I'm concentrating on, my right hip is up against the lathe, the bedways, so that I can look left eye here, right eye here, and without even using the bright light, you can pretty much see what you're doing. It's just something I don't think I ever saw anybody talk about that, but it's just something that I sort of do. I'm also using a 5/8 gouge so that I can have the overhang. I will switch away from that when I go to make the final couple cuts. We're pretty much now we've gotten rid of the junky stuff kind of that was throwing it out of balance, so now I can speed it up more yet, which makes the natural edge part much easier. When I get closer to the final pass, as you can see, I'm slowing down, not pushing so hard on it. Could switch over to a 1/2 inch gouge to do this too. I think we're pretty close to where we're going to be. I usually leave these, so I thought I bounced out here. We're going to have to make one more little cut. Usually around 3/8 of an inch is what I leave them at. And that's right about where we're at there. So, get my 1/2 inch gouge in here somewhere. And just make it a little bit more, it's a little lighter in weight. So it doesn't, you don't have a tendency to push as hard on it. I'm going to go in here where it's solid and find the bevel, come out, pick up my cut, and proceed nice and slow. And get beyond what we needed to go. At least it felt like it dropped right into that little, it did. Dropped right into that little ledge that I left up there. There is one of the cracks that does come all the way through. So we might have to do a little filling on them. But that's okay. We can deal with that. So we can move our tool rest in. Not that it really truly does a whole lot for you, but it will help. It's more of a peace of mind thing, as far as I'm concerned anyhow. So now we can use the sharp half of the gouge and go in and go down. Now when we work on out at that distance on the tool rest, then you sort of pick up some little vibration out of the tool rest. And the 40-degree gouge will actually drill a hole. Not quite like a spindle gouge, but really not far off of it. Gotta be a little bit more careful with it than you do a spindle gouge, because that right wing can still catch. I also don't pick the gouge up. I'm sliding right back up on the bevel, drops over that grid, and it's ready to cut. Anyway, you don't have to think about where is my bevel lined up in the right place, because you know it is. And before I make the last cut or two, I am going to stop and use my fingers. I'm not going to get a gauge out on that, because I don't really feel that I need to. But in order to keep the tool, in order to use my 1/2 inch gouge, I'm just going to move the tool rest around. Get all the crap out from under it. And I'll just come in like about there. That way I'm parallel with that, and it's a little bit easier not to push hard on things that way. At least that's what I found. Anyhow, we'll make that probably try and make that 2 cuts. Here's where we have to be careful where our left hand is at too. I'll pick up my cut behind that ridge, go through the ridge, and follow the line down. And it looks like I left a little bit of the ridge, so we got to go back after it one more time. Sort of becomes an issue of being able to see the ridge, but we missed it. It's no big deal. Pretty even consistency, the wall thickness, at least it feels like it is. Could be thickening up a little bit at the bottom. So if I see if I can find the ridge, see the ridge. Make it a little bit thinner at the bottom and not run into the wall. Now we got it. Tiny little bit of a dip right there, but I'm not going to worry with that. That's definitely sandable. I need little ridges here and there, but that's, ouch. Stick your finger in there and then spin it around so you hit your finger on the tool rest. Always a good idea. So now we'll continue on down. Here's where it'll become a little bit more difficult. I'll still be able to use my 40-40 for a little ways down here, but that's one of the problems with the 40-degree gouge is you cannot make the turn. It will not make the turn. It's not in its vocabulary to make that type of a turn. First off, it's only 40 degrees, so in order to make that turn, as you can see, I can't really show you. If I'm on the bevel here and I go to make that turn right away, it comes off the bevel. And on bevel supported cut's not going to be a clean cut. But there at that point there where I'm starting to curve over that direction a little bit, it's starting to fight me. It's starting to bounce because it's hitting a whole bunch of end grain, and that particular grind does not like the end grain. And yeah, you can use the back of the tool to knock some of the chips out of there. Actually feels pretty good. So now from there, now all we really have to do is clean up this bottom and make it round. And since we kind of made this a little deep, I probably should go sharpen this. I use my bottom bowl gouge here. I could actually use the 5/8 inch one as well. I'm going to try it before I take the time to take it apart and sharpen it. Don't use it that much so it doesn't, like, you don't sharpen this thing very often. But it need to be able to hit center on it. And this one doesn't care how much overhang it has. The only problem with the bottom bowl gouges, is they don't necessarily clean out the chips as well as they would like. They don't do too bad on the drier wood. The wetter wood, as you can see, it's just piling up, and then you can't see what you're doing. But it does make almost a perfectly clean cut. Actually, if that was nice, I could bring the view in a little bit closer so you can see just what it does. This will take me a minute because I have to move it. It has its own little separate software to actually manipulate this camera. It looks like that's probably about as close as I'm going to get it, though. I'll give you a little better idea. And hopefully I don't step in. I don't think I will with this one. This bottom bowl gouge is ground at 60 degrees. And it wants to stay at that 60 degrees too. If you get, I have a small one like this in a 1/2 inch one. And you get it much off of that 60 degrees and they're a little bit unruly. They're also a little bit hard. As you can see, I'm sort of fighting to try and get back up here and pick up this cut right behind that. Like I say, I kind of fight with that one a little bit. We still have material there that we need to remove, but it is a bit kind of temperamental in a way. Yeah, I did get it. Because the parts you can't see, I'm actually cutting down here on this bottom part and up onto the left part of that wing. That's what makes them a little bit different to use. You're used to having a gouge over on, you know, about 45 degrees or something like that, where this one's straight up. And actually, if you roll this over on the 45, it'll start to cut down here and it wants to roll it over. So that's why I say it's a learning curve to use it, put it that way. But once the curve is met, the learning curve part is met. It does a wonderful job on the bottom, where it leaves you almost a perfectly smooth surface. So we'll see if we got our shape right. It looks like there's a bit of a hump right there, which is kind of typical for me. So I need to come back up in here and pick it up, take a little bit more out there and make the curve sweep a little bit. It's all about the feel of it, and I certainly don't want to have to sand a bunch down in there just because I was too lazy to go back and make one or two more little cuts down in there. Okay, so now we got rid of our hump back here, and now all we got to do is blend that last little bit in there at the bottom. We could use a scraper to do that too. But we'll cut it. I do have a big negative rake scraper that would do the job in there too. And I leave a little nub sticking up down there in the bottom, rather than keep playing around with it, especially with the bottom bowl gouge like that. It has a tendency, it'll create like a little ring around there, which is not fun to try and sand out. Now, as usual, I have some ridges in there, which is pretty typical for me. So that's the basic bowl pretty much done. We're going to have to address that foot, but before we go, I'm just thinking. It's a dangerous thing. I need to fill these cracks. That one comes the whole way through. That one I can't feel, but it's very close to coming the whole way through. So we can mix up a little super glue. Definitely need to do some wax in here. That's doing all this dry wood. It makes everything dry out on the lathe bed as well. So let me go get my mica powder and we'll fill them. We're going to use the copper again, because I thought it looked pretty neat on the cherry. that gloves. And I need a little bit of painter's tape as well. This is the one that comes all the way through. I'm going to spray a little bit of activator right there on that crack before I put the tape on. This way when it comes through, because it's definitely going to come through from the other side, it'll hit the activator and make it set up right away. The tape is going to be the secondary insurance to make sure it doesn't run away from me. I'm just going to put just a little bit of, you just hit it with the activator right there. That's definitely another crack. That's one of the other cracks that's starting to come through. Any problem with the activator and the tape, the tape doesn't always like to stick to it. So we'll get our little pick and try and open them up a little bit. This is a dental pick. So I'm just trying to get the little fuzzies out of there. That's it, 3 of them, 3 places. A little bit of disturbed grain there. It's not. It's too late now anyhow. You can't go back. I couldn't go back and recut on that, so. So we'll get our gloves on. And we'll go back to strictly overhead. And should be able to come in like right on the cracks. It gives you kind of like the bird's eye view of them. Yeah, that looks good. Leave the keyboard over here. I'm going to spray the crack with activator up close and personal. It's the only time I spray the activator up close and personal. What I'm doing is shooting it down into the crack so the super glue sets from the bottom up, basically from the bottom to the top. That way it'll make it quicker for it. I probably won't be able to do anything more to this. This is a copper, antique copper mica powder. It only takes just a little bit to color it. I usually put way more than what I need to in there. And then we'll use the Parfix 3460. This does a better job. This is the one to fill cracks, put it that way. The 3408 will not necessarily do a good job on filling the cracks. And we'll just put the mica powder in our little paper cup. Mix it up good. I think I'll put a little bit more in there. At this point, I'd rather waste a little bit than not have enough. You can see it's really kind of a nice color. And it really kind of stands out quite well on the cherry. And now we'll take our little cup, and I gotta get some paper towels. because I'm always messy on this part. But there's no ifs, ands, or buts on that. I will make a mess. But if I have a paper towel ready, I'm going to stop it from running down that way, for one. So we'll just try and get it, because you know it's going to run downhill. Trying to get it a little bit to come out. Spin this around a little bit. What the camera doesn't pick up, when this hits that accelerator in there, it's really sort of bubbles up and carries on, because it's making it set up really quickly. Not that you can go back and turn on this or sand on this in a matter of a couple minutes, because you can't. This will need to sit for a day, as I've tried and have made very big messes doing it that way. Definitely that place right there is a little bit of end grain to start with. Come on, one drip. As you can see, that's the advantage of spraying the the activator first. That's already set up. When I touch that, it's already there. This will stay viable. It's already a slow setting CA glue to start with, but until it makes contact with a bunch of moisture, it's not going to do anything in this cup. I've actually used an empty bottle and actually have mixed some of this up in the bottle. There, it's only good for, I'm trying to think how long it was, maybe a week. And then it started to thicken up on me. Because I had the bright idea that I could just mix up, you know, a good amount at one time, and then I wouldn't have to do it each and every time, but that didn't quite work. Come on, get in the crack. It's kind of neat to watch when you can do it at my vantage point. We can try on the next one, on the last one. This stuff, you can actually see it like kind of almost like boil in a way, because it's generating the heat as it's starting to cure. And if I don't get it perfectly filled when I go back and sand this, and maybe there's a little indentation there, or when you sand it, maybe there was a little air pocket or something like that, I don't need to mix up more of the color. I can just use the clear and go back and fill those little pockets in, because the color's underneath it and it shows through it. That's usually why I normally don't necessarily mess with the cracks. That one has some air bubbles in it. That's why it's starting to come through. That crack that crack didn't appear to go the whole way through, but there's a little bit of color on the inside. So that's why there's still some air bubbles coming up. So just keep popping them. And then we'll have to put a little bit more in. The other thing was spraying the activator on there like I did. All this area that's out around here will disappear. Once I sand that, that will not have soaked into the wood. It'll soak in a little bit, but it's not going to soak in enough that it'll leave the copper color behind. At least I haven't had any do that to me. The other thing I could do with something like that would be I could have put a coat of shellac out around here, because super glue does not get along with shellac. It actually will sit on top of it to a point. Eventually it'll make it soft and mushy, but just gotta make sure that I'm not getting carried away like that. One spot just wants to keep. I'll go back over here and fill this last little one. And then I'll come back to that one. I keep dabbing on there. That's what I'm doing, is getting rid of the air bubbles, because there's a whole bunch of air bubbles comes up. It is kind of a time-consuming process too. As you can see, it's not just, if it was something flat, it would be easy. You just dump a whole bunch on there and just let it do its thing, but when it's curved, it wants to keep running away. It's all about being a little bit patient with it. going to sit this over off to the side. I don't want the activator used anywhere near that. I'm going to shoot that one just a little bit at a distance because it doesn't seem like it. Maybe I didn't get enough down in the crack. Now I can get the last little bit of the crack, hopefully. Trying to get all the stinking air bubbles to pop is the challenging part, really. Just keep tapping on them. Probably could even take a little bit of, hot glue and go out around there and sort of make a dam, but then you'd end up wasting a whole bunch of super glue to do that. Just a light mist at a distance. Make it start to activate. I'm going to come back over and see if I can get this in filled more. So I set my cup well away from the activator. 1 or 2 drops of activator in that cup and it's going to set up right away. As you can see, that little bit that I just put on there, since there was fresh activator there, immediately set up. Which is what I wanted it to do. Wait, it'll fill that last little bit in. There it goes. Now we still have, get that off your finger. Super glue does get quite warm when it sets up. Yeah, that's another way. This is, to me, I don't know. I have the mica powder, so this is kind of a little bit easier. And a crack like that, I mean, I do have the copper powder that I could have put copper powder down in there. Or what else do I have? I have copper and brass. But those cracks there are really not, they're really not deep enough and big enough to me to warrant trying to fill them with the copper powder or with any of the powders. I don't know if you could actually, that's something I could try sometime. Instead of mixing up the mica powder, I could probably just put the mica powder right down into there and just put the super glue on top of it and let it run down through it. But this works just as well. There's a little bit left in there yet. I don't think I have anything. Remember, I don't think I have anything that needed cracks filled. So just let it go. I'll set it over here on off to the side. So we've already played with this 2 or 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. It's still very liquid. It's not starting to set up in the cup. Might dissolve the cup, but we'll set it over off to the side. Go on and do something else, because this, like I say, this is going to be a I know this has to sit for a solid 24 hours. Even the way that I did it, chances are, if I was to take and try and sand that stuff back off right now, I would find some that's not set up underneath it. It's just not. Then I would have ended up wasting my time doing what I did. So it's just better off to say that piece is going to be another day. It's only 8 o'clock, so we'll do something else. It's dry to the touch on the outside, but like I say, underneath, good possibility there's some that's not dry. And if I let it totally set up and cure, then when I go to sand, it'll actually sand a little bit easier. Won't gum up the sandpaper quite as quick. So that'll be a piece for another day. I'll widen things back out here so you can see what the heck we're doing. Looks kind of messy, but it won't be when we get it done. I do have a couple other things to actually finish. Actually, here's one. This is the one we'll finish up on. This one here has the copper in it already. It hasn't, I sanded the super glue back off of it because there was a couple places I figured there would be some little pits in there, and there was, that I filled up with other super glue. So we'll put this on. We'll finish sanding this and finish it. I'll show you where the next issue is going to come in, because right out in here, that's all super glue that has been absorbed in there. So when I go, and I'll use 3408 on this, all them places like that are going to want to set up right away, and it'll cause me just a little bit of extra work. But it's really not too bad. I could also finish it with 3460, which won't do that to me. That's another option. And what size jaws? 2-inch. So it'll take me a minute here. We'll get things set up. Use a friction drive. This has basically already been twice turned. It's at the point now where it's just sand it and finish it. And we have a mark on the bottom, a ring mark that should be close enough. I have to move some things out of my road so I can bring the dust chute over. Get rid of a tool rest. So that we don't whack our elbow on it. I'm really pretty good at that, so. We can come back in a little bit. Can't go in super close. Turn on the noise maker. Use down. I'm kind of a fan of the power sanding. I don't. Use a 2-inch disc. I will spin it in reverse, about 400 or 500 RPMs. The reason I spin it in reverse is for the dust collection, because the hose is just out of your sight. And it did start with 120. Probably could have got away with not doing that, but I know there's a fair amount of super glue is soaked in, so if I can get some of it off, I'm going to. Got my paintbrush. I wipe it off in between each grit. I don't want any leftovers behind. Guess I really should have done the foot. Shoot. I don't normally leave the foot square like that. Use a 3/8. Yeah, won't work in reverse though. 3/8 spindle gouge. And you can see this is not quite true, but we'll make it true. Not off that much. I really wish I could get my beading tools in there, but I can't. I don't. Maybe I'm lying to myself on this one. I don't think I can. I think I tried this before. I don't have enough room. No. More yet. Problem with it is you got to almost be touching it. And then we'll see. Got to look at something quickly though. Forgot I left this over here. Oh, thank you for the raid there, MW Mudworks. Sorry about that. I was too busy talking. I'm one of them goofy wood turners here on, this is on Twitch. It's also being broadcast on YouTube as well. Thank you for the raid, though. What we're doing here is finishing up a bowl from another day. That one's going to be too big. It's worth a try. Not sure this is going to work the way I want it to. Nope. I made it worse. I only took a big chunk up there. So I figured, because I can't, when it's in that mess mode, I really can't spin it very fast. And that particular little tool there likes it to go really fast. So what appeared to be maybe saving me some work just cost me more work. Because it didn't do too bad, but could have been worse. I got to reset things here because trying to get the tool rest in there for that other tool. I got to figure out whether I got it in the right place. No, because it tried to pull it out of the jam chuck. Now we're going to have to re-true it up again. Like starting over. Okay. Lesson learned, not how to, don't try and cheat on it. As you see, my cheating move cost me time and effort. So, back to sanding. And we might as well go the whole way back and start back over with 120. Make sure I get rid of all that big gouge in there. Yeah, I know, Viking. What are they going to do? Kick me off? Not really too concerned about that. The way I see it, they don't pay me any money. And they didn't ask my permission whether they were allowed to run ads on my channel. So kind of odd. Some reason I do use speech chat, but it's not. Hold on. Got some message that I can't read. Huh. Interesting. Tells me I have to reconnect that. Hold on. I guess we'll just have to read them. Huh. I'm gonna mess with it. So we're 220. At this point now I got to go in here and sand this little bead down here a little bit. Get it to look like a bead rather than a little pointy thing. Which is a little challenging when you got big fingers, but you can use the sandpaper and stick the edge of the sandpaper right in there. Really does a pretty good job. Do a better job if I go in forward rather than reverse. I have a pair of scissors that'll cut sandpaper without killing the scissors too. So I see it's a very little piece. It will sand that the whole way up to 600. That's probably good enough for that. Yeah. And we'll go back to reverse and continue the last couple grits for this the outside. Lastly, will be a little bit of 800, pretty much just on the bead and a little bit in the groove. And then we'll do the whole thing with 800 by hand, little random orbit, little circles. Break up any of the radial scratches that might have still be there, because your eye can't really pick up the 800 grit scratches, but it certainly will pick up ones that are in line with one another. Lastly, we use a paper towel to clean it off. Cleans all the crap off of it. There's a couple little scratches down there, but I'm not gonna be that fussy with it. Do feel some places on the rim here though. A little place where some grain was standing up there. Not good. That'll work. So now if I did everything right, which is probably a good possibility of not, I'm looking for the perfect circle is what I'm looking for. I don't remember which one of them I used, I used. But I want one that's close to a circle. That's not it. Nope. This is going to be that one. It'll probably leave some, I won't put much pressure on it. May leave some little, tiny little indentations, just enough to keep it there. I can sand it. Wish I knew. Oh. All right, so see what we can do. Over to there and move the view out a little bit. And up a little bit. All right. Now you'll be able to see what we're doing. All we're doing is sanding. This will only take a minute to sand the inside of that, and we'll finish it, and then we're probably going to be done. So. This one we'll definitely have to inspect. This rim is a little bit undercut. And I'll make sure I get up underneath there and get everything and anything that would be messed up in there. Right there's a tiny little bit of grain that's standing up. Just a simple progression of grits. That was 150. Go to 180. There, I'm going to stop and make sure that really what I'm concerned with right here is to make sure I didn't leave any 120 grit scratches behind, which we didn't. So we'll just keep on going. As you can see, the finer the grit that I go, the shinier it's going to become. That was 400. Last but not least will be 600. Make sure I didn't miss something that somebody said to me. Other than the fact that, yes, I know I'm not supposed to be streaming the two platforms at once on Twitch. Only other thing I'm going to do to it is a little bit of 800 and do it by hand. Just go over the top edge of these beads, because I certainly don't think I can get in there. No. They really actually are cut smooth enough anyhow, and I really don't have to sand them. And it's almost impossible to sand them. So you get rid of the hose. I like to be a rule breaker anyhow. I don't like when people feel that some of these places feel they own you or something or other. So now we're going to finish it. We'll finish it on both sides. We'll start on the inside, or on the, yeah, we'll start on the outside first. And I need my piece of wax paper. And we'll just use wax paper. So we'll go back to our original mark in here, or at least part of it anyhow. Really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I'm not going to spin it. Get the wax paper out of the road. Wax paper is there just in case that, because this is going to get a CA finish on it, and the CA that I'm going to use is very, very thin. It can actually run through to the inside if the piece is thin, when the grain's lined up right. It takes a few different factors for it to actually happen to you. I got to get a new pair of gloves. I don't want to put gold in there. But the wax paper is a barrier to prevent the super glue from getting onto the jam chuck, or the friction dry. Another one of them live and learn kind of lessons. It did happen to me once, and same blue material that's on that one sucked it right into the grain of the wood. And of course I hit it with activator until I took it off. It had already set up enough that it pulled the blue stuff into the grain and left it there. So that was not a very good day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little pad. See, yeah, we'll be able to see it there. A little piece of polyester felt. I'm going to roll it up in my paper towel. It's going to act as a little activator, or a little reservoir pad. What we're going to use, you can't hardly read it, this is the Parfix 3408, which is a slow setting CA glue, which has no odor and does not have any reactions to paper towels. Like some super glues will actually make paper towels smoke and carry on and really stink, where this has no odor and has no reactions at all with the paper towels. So one coat finish. I have 40, and it has a 40-second time delay. So I get to play with this for 40 seconds or more. Some of that depends on the environment you're in, how much humidity you have, because CA glue sets up in the presence of moisture. So the more moisture you have, the quicker it will set up, even though this has the time delay. It will set up quicker if you're in an area that's very high moisture content. That's it. One coat. Basically trying to saturate the wood, fill up the pores. We're going to take a dry paper towel and we're going to wipe off the excess. As I'm wiping off the excess, I'm smearing it around again. Make sure that we have everything filled. And then we're going to make sure that we have everything totally dry, because I don't want any of this that's sitting on the surface. I don't want. I only want what went down into the wood, because that is what we're going to use as our finish. And from here, in a day, has a 24-hour cure time. I'm going to have a little bit of work to do on it. As I can see right there, I can feel it drag, and there's some little bumps right where them cracks that I filled, because it has already sealed that stuff up, so it wants to sit on the surface. I will hit it with a little activator. Sticking with the thing of no odor, this is an activator that's a heptane-based activator. My can's about empty. So it also has very low odor, low to no odor. I can't smell it. The only time I smell it is if, like there, when the can is getting empty, then you might be able to smell it a little bit. So we're done with our wax paper and our friction drive. And especially since this is not a true circle in there. A little bit of wax on the jaws. Little microcrystalline wax. Doesn't really matter that it's a microcrystalline. It's just a little bit of wax on the jaws. Once again, super glue doesn't like wax. I can also put that, it's actually kind of a good thing to put on your fingers, on the glove, a little bit. Just got to remember, you don't want to touch any bare wood with those two fingers. But at that point, at that note, it will stop the super glue from sticking to the glove. I'm going to wipe the excess off of here because I don't really need it. It won't hurt anything because that's already been sealed. It's just one of them things I like to keep things cleaned off. So now we're going to go ahead and grab this. It is leaving tiny little marks in it. So I may have to go back and sand a little bit on that. Maybe. Ideally, I made that tenon just a little bit too big, is what it amounts to. Ideally, to make that properly would be have it the right size that the jaws would create a circle, a perfect circle. Then it won't leave any marks on the wood at all, on something like that. It's leaving very little marks, but the right person will know what those marks are. So just like the outside, the inside will take less material because it's already been sealed, so it can't pull it through to the other side like it was trying to do on that side. I haven't done any of these with the beads in a while. I might have to take that actually off and pour it in there. I don't. So I can let gravity take over for me a little bit. So just run a little bit in the groove, whole way around. Let it spin. That way it'll sink down in that groove and we'll be golden. Just like the other side, give it just a little bit to dry, or just soak in, and then we'll dry it off. Dry off the excess, get the excess off. Some woods are a little bit more porous than others, so some will take more material to do this too. But when you can be done in one coat and come back the next day or the day whenever and buff it and be done with it, that's where I'm at with it. Probably 90% of my stuff is finished this way. Anytime it's not, as if it has some, like some of the wax grain fillers in it or painted or something. Super glue has a tendency to melt things like that. And if it can't soak in, it won't do it. It doesn't know what to do. It would just lay on the surface. Or in the case of the grain fillers, it'll actually dissolve the grain filler. So there it is. The only thing left to do is clean off this bottom, which I'll do that, another day, maybe tomorrow. I got some other work to do tomorrow, but this will get, I could either put it back on the same way I had it and undercut this a little bit and leave a little nub in the bottom, but I also have a vacuum chuck, so I'll just grab this with the vacuum and I'll actually be able to turn, sand, and finish all that way. So go back overhead, it'll make more sense. You'll be able to see it better. And I've moved that camera a little bit. There we go. Other than that, that's pretty much a wrap for me tonight. I can show you the other. This was the other piece, depending on how long you've been here. Same thing, it's cherry. This is a natural edge. This would have been the bark out here, which falls off. There's also it kind of leaves a texture around that rim. That I will probably, once I sand it and finish the inside and outside, then I'll come back and I'll probably dye, put some either brown or black dye on this rim, just to sort of highlight it. This one had some cracks in, which we filled with super glue, which needs to sit overnight before I can sand that off. And that's really what this piece needs. The only thing left to do on this piece is to sand this, create this bead, create the same bead that's on that down here, and sand it and finish it. Probably about a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes worth of work left to do on that. Once the super glue sets up and dries, which will be overnight. This stuff has a 24-hour cure time. They both do. Anybody have any questions, comments? Other than letting me know that I'm breaking the rules. Let's see if we can find, if there's anybody on to actually raid into tonight. I have my doubts, but there hasn't been. So we'll go look here. Nope. It's getting to be less and less people streaming all the time. For whatever reason. I don't know. Other than that, that's pretty much all I have for this evening. So I am normally here, Twitch TV 514 studio. Oh, now you're really pushing it. That's somebody I don't know. And now I probably screwed myself all up. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I get that part, but if I don't follow them, it's on a commercial break. There we go. Let's try something. So if I follow him, and then come back here. I'm not smart enough to know how to actually raid into somebody that I don't know and don't follow. That's the real problem. So now that I followed him, I can raid to him. Thank you, Random. So we're going to raid into there. I'm going to end my YouTube part of this.